What's up, guys? Welcome to Archer Amplified. I'm Archer. I'll be here every Monday talking to you about my job as a full-time musician and all the hurdles that come along with that. You'll hear about shows, songwriting, and everything that goes on behind the curtain. If you're curious about when I'm playing my shows, make sure you go to archermusicxx.com to check out my show schedule. Also, give me a follow on Instagram and Facebook. Just search Archer Music XX. So in the last episode, I talked to you about college and majoring and minoring and things, and in this episode, I'm going to tell you about what happened in the few months at the end of college and right after I graduated, which was I became part of a beach music band called BigTime. So during the last few months that I had graduated, it was actually a pretty hectic time. Like, I know that it's usually a hectic time anyway for college graduates, but I was also doing modeling and acting. So while I was in college, I ended up going to school. I'd been sent an email, or I don't know, I can't really remember exactly how it had happened, but I started going to this modeling and acting school, and they were teaching me how to do makeup for different things and how to walk on a catwalk and different poses and monologues. And honestly, there was a lot of confidence building within the modeling and acting school. And at the end of that, there was a showcase. And that meant that I had to write my own monologue. I had to write my own monologue, walk down a catwalk, do a photo shoot with 3 different looks, and then I had to have an interview with every single modeling and acting agency that came to this showcase. And there were 15 of them. So it was like a walk, talk for a minute, continue on. Kind of like speed dating, but for modeling and acting agencies. So then I got callbacks, and I went to these different callbacks and decided which agency was a good fit for me, which was one based out of Charlotte, and I, was signed with them, or am still signed with them. I still, talk with them and try to figure out work things sometimes, but, or when I'm not playing a show, that's what I do. And during these last few months in college, I was doing promotions for Pepsi. I was in a few commercials. I did one for NASCAR. I did one for Starbucks. But it was a lot of Pepsi promotions and stuff like that. So I got to work with drinks like OV and Twisted and stuff like that. And OV was my favorite, though. The lemon, the citrus one, that was my favorite. I don't know if you've ever seen OV, but if you have, the yellow one is the best. Anyway, okay, so during these last few months, I was doing all of that, plus college, and John, who was a member, the lead singer of BigTime, he called me and was like, "Hey, we're making some lineup changes. Do you want to be in the band?" And I'm like, yeah, I do. Okay, backstory a little bit. I met John about 3 years prior to this at one of my shows in Pittsburgh, and we connected, and we had been writing songs ever since then. So I'd been friends with him for a good while. Now, I'd never really listened to beach music other than my aunt's radio in her car. I knew what it sounded like. I recognized 2 songs max. I was into pop music. My history was with country music. So Carolina beach music was just a whole different animal for me. So I knew of BigTime. I knew they were really good. And when John called and asked me if I was interested, I was like, yeah! And then I was like, holy crap, I'm nervous. What if they don't like me? There's so many people in the band. John's dad, Johnny, he's the one that owns the band. So while it was up to the band to accept me into their group, it was ultimately up to Johnny whether to keep me or not. Like, Johnny owns the name. he owns like all things. So, and his son John was the one that I was working with. So I was really excited, but also insanely nervous because like I said, I knew of BigTime and I knew they were really good and I'd heard them before. And yeah, so we scheduled a rehearsal. And this time I came in knowing more than 2 songs. So good job, Brittany. You learned more than 2 songs. Um, in the beginning, I remember Johnny really intimidating me because I knew that he knew really good musicians his whole life and he'd always been around them. And I was just really nervous that I wasn't going to be good enough or that I just didn't have quite what it was that they were looking for. Plus, it was a new genre for me. And that just really decreased my confidence a good bit. John was always like, don't be nervous. It's okay. They're going to like you. It's okay. But that doesn't, I was still, I was still so nervous. Looking back, I see now where I probably shouldn't have been because it's just, I really should have just focused on enjoying myself and the songs, but I was really nervous. So when I say there's a lot of people in the band that I needed to win over, air quote, win over. There, when I was in the band, there was rhythm guitar, which is what I played, and I did lead female vocals. Then John was the other lead male vocal, and he also played lead guitar. Plus, there was another lead guitarist, and a bass player, and a keyboardist, and a drummer, and a sax player, and a trumpet player. Plus, Johnny running sound, and that's just a lot of people. That's a lot of people that I wanted them all to like me, and ultimately, I mean, I made it in the band, and it was a huge sigh of relief. And then I realized that I had to learn a whole bunch of songs I had never heard in my life. Not, maybe it was just one, but I had to learn a whole bunch of songs I'd never heard of. And I hadn't graduated college quite yet. Like I said, I still had a few months, so I used whatever free time I had between modeling and doing promotions and writing speeches for my communications classes and projects for entrepreneurship. I used my free time to learn this new genre of music. And let me tell you, Carolina beach music is hard to play. It really is. It is not predictable like country. Like the main ones that all the beach music bands play, like they're some of them, they're just really hard. And it's literally like every verse and chorus is a set of new chords. So like good luck memorizing that pattern. Eventually though, I got used to it. And in all honesty, I did have to write some chords for a couple of songs on my set list for like the harder ones. Like the song Summertime's Calling Me. I don't know if you've heard it, but look it up and look at the different chords for it because that was one of the ones that I had to keep written down because it was just so, for whatever reason, my brain just could not grasp that pattern. I don't know why. So John had also told me, well, you don't need to play guitar on every song. And for me, that was like, what? I've only ever played guitar on every single song ever on stage. What do I do with my hands? I had never been on stage without a guitar whatsoever. I did not know what to do with that. And he's like, well, just play the tambourine. I had to go get a tambourine. So, that was a pretty cool experience walking into Guitar Center looking for a tambourine. I was like, oh, I'm going to get a tambourine for this new band that I'm in called BigTime. It's going to be fun. And I was like really stoked about it. And so I started playing tambourine. And luckily I'd already gotten the rhythm thing down because it's my right hand. And on guitar, for me, right hand is rhythm. So right hand for tambourine, it just makes sense. So I was able to figure that out, and I got used to that too, and I ended up, having a lot of fun with it. Um, fun fact though. So I had two tambourines, right? And not at the same time, but the first one I had was a black one, and I loved it. I loved it because it was black, and I love black, and it was also light. It was a light tambourine. It was not heavy. It was light. And it did the job. It was awesome. Well, I I guess I would get so into the songs with my tambourine that eventually the little things on the inside, the little cymbals, the little itty bitty little cymbals. I don't actually know what the actual name of those is called, but the jingly things on the tambourine, they broke off. And so, like, in the middle of a song, all the little things just started falling to the ground. And John's over here singing, and he looks at me like, what the heck is happening? And yeah, so I had to go get a new tambourine. My second tambourine was more heavy duty. More heavy duty. It was a little heavier, but it was heavy duty, and it was like a double thing where it had like 2 rows of little cymbal things. I still have that one. That one's not broken yet. That one's not broken yet. Proud of that one. So, along with doing something new, I also used in-ears. So, in-ear monitors. In-ear monitors are basically like headphones that are plugged into the sound so that you can hear everything and not go deaf. You know those, like, when you watch TV and you see those artists on TV and they have those things in their ears with the little wire going down their back? Those are in-ear monitors. I didn't have the molded kind like the artists do because those are really expensive. But I had the other kind where you just the generic kind. You just put them in your ear. I wanted molded kinds, but I didn't get those. Anyway, so I used those, and mostly because I'd come to find out that when you load in, that's a whole nother monitor that you have to load in. And while they're not that heavy, it's just a whole another trip that you have to make and a whole nother thing you have to break down. And then it's just like all this loud music, amps, drums, y'all, saxophones and trumpets are really loud, especially when they're right beside you, which is where I was at on stage. And yeah, those things get really loud. So very thankful for in-ears. So that really took out having to take up stage space, honestly. Like, that was the biggest thing, because I had two guitars. I had my electric and I had my acoustic. And so it would give me a little bit more stage space, a little bit more movement area to work with. So that was really nice. Obviously, working with in-ears, there's a learning curve, and, do you leave one? Do you take it out? Like, it just really depends on what you like, what you want to hear, or I don't know how to explain it, but you also have to be able to learn to say how much of what you want and how much of something that you don't need in your ears. Like, if the drums are really loud, then you don't necessarily want so much of them. And for me, because the horns were really loud and right there at me, I never put those in my in-ear monitors. So that was part of that new thing that I had to learn. So the hardest part about being in a band is the driving, the setting up, the playing for 4 hours, the breaking down, and driving back on little to no sleep. And honestly, I just listed everything that you have to do, minus rehearsing, with a band. But let me explain. So, as a beach music band, we played in Myrtle Beach and North Myrtle Beach a lot, and Carolina Beach a lot. So the good majority of our shows was on the coast, and I am 3 hours from the coast. So it's like, it literally is a whole day's worth of figuring things out. So I have to drive 3 hours. I also have to figure out when I'm going to eat. Is it further than 3 hours, do I need to eat before I leave, or am I going to have to stop on the way? If so, I may have to leave a little earlier. Also, what about traffic? Is where I'm going to be going through a heavily trafficked area. Is there going to be a wreck, a possibility of, rain? Is it going to be heavy rain? Might have to drive slower. So there's that. And then when you get there, you have to set up. So setting up is a lot. So you have to set up the speakers, you have to set up the lights, and then you have your own stuff, like your own monitors if you're using one, your in-ears if you're using them, and then your amplifier, your guitar. Make sure your pedal board's, working, make sure everything's in tune, make sure all your cables are good. And then you play for 4 hours, which is, that's the fun part. That's the fun part. And that's the high energy, the like, yeah, like, let's get everyone singing along situation. Well, then that's over after 4 hours, and you have to break down. So everything you just set up, you just set up, you have to now do it in reverse and break it down. So that literally is like rewrapping cables and putting things back in a consolidated way so that you can pack it out and put it in the trailer or put it in your car and then drive, sometimes home, depending on if you had somewhere to stay that night. So sometimes, depending on how far away it would be, I would drive, hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours to do that, play for 4 hours, break down, and then drive back. So let's see. Driving 3 hours. Setting up usually took 2 hours, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 9 hours. And then another 10, 11, 2 hours to break down, essentially, and then driving another 1, 2, 3 hours. That's a lot. That's a lot. And that was the hardest part, was the driving and the setting up. And as musicians, we made a joke like, we don't get paid to play, we get paid to set up and break down, because that's where the actual work comes in. And then you get to do it all again the next day. So, all right, so I've talked about the hardest part. So the best part about being in a band is all of the funny things and the experiences that I was able to get. So, like, for example, we were playing a wedding in Durham, and there was this huge elevator, and that was what we used to get our music equipment up to. I think it was like the second or third floor, and I had leaned against the wall because weddings are can be difficult to play as a band. Not difficult, but there's just like a lot of waiting involved, because you have to get there and set up before everyone else comes. And then you have to play for whatever amount of time, and then you're probably usually not taking a break. If you do, it's not for very long, and then you gotta wait for everyone to clear out before you start breaking down your stuff. So anyway, it was pretty late, and we were in this huge elevator, and I leaned against the wall because I was really tired. And I guess I wasn't paying attention, and I moved, and my butt hit the police button in the elevator, and I heard a phone start ringing, and I was like, what is that? Why? Whose phone is this? And then it was like, 911, what's your emergency? And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I was so nervous. It scared me to death. And about that time, the doors had opened, so I just like shot out, which is not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be like, sorry, it was a mistake, didn't mean to call you. But I was freaking out. And so our drummer Mike had to tell him, like, sorry, it was a mistake, didn't mean to call. And they were like, okay, it's fine. But by that point, I was already out in the parking lot and telling everybody what I had done. So, yeah. And then there's always another good thing about being in a band is like all the inside jokes, and you pick on each other. Like, I was always picked on for being the youngest in the band, but like that's, that kind of comes with it when, you're playing with older musicians that are more seasoned and, better in general. So there's that. And, Another really, really cool thing is when everybody is on point and meshing so well in a show. That is the best feeling. It's more a feeling than it is an action. Like, yes, we're all playing the song at the same time and but it's just a feeling that's like everything is right. All the things we worked on, like, really came together. The energy of the crowd, the energy of the band, how well we're pulling off the song, the tightness of it all. Like all the stops are just tight and on point. That is the best feeling. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. And also, like, you make a lot of friends in the band, obviously, with your bandmates and outside of the band, like with bartenders and servers and people coming to listen. It was really cool because then, the longer I was in the band, the more that the people would recognize me. They're like, hey, what's up? Hey, we're looking forward to you guys playing. Or like if I'm out walking somewhere, like, hey, I saw you the other night at, Decker's or something. And, y'all did great. So that was really cool to, be able to meet people and yeah. So, all right, two of the coolest things I got to do while I was in Big Time. So they have the CBMAs, which is the Carolina Beach Music Awards, and it's this big thing. It's really big in the beach music community, and they have awards, they have nominations, and they have, you know, like all these things, and I got to sing on stage for that, and that was really cool because it was like in front of all the beach music bands and all the beach music fans, and I don't know, that was really fun. And then another really cool thing, this is like way up there with my coolest experiences of my life. I got to play at House of Blues with Big Time, and it was a charity event, and there were other bands there, and it was really cool because my first concert I had ever been to was it was Aaron Carter and I was like 7 and I was second row standing down there at the bottom, and it was just really cool to be to play on the same stage where I went to my first concert. That just completely blew my mind. And seeing, backstage of what that was like with the curtains and the lounge, and just really walking around the venue when it was empty, like, it was just awesome. It was amazing. And then playing on the stage, like on that big of a stage with that many people out there, was also amazing. So that ranks up there with coolest experiences that I've done. Yeah. I spent 2 years with Big Time, and I still consider every single one of them a really good friend. I was able to grow as a singer and a musician during my time there. I was able to challenge myself with a new genre and new songs. Like I said, I made a lot of friends. I made friends out of the band members. I made friends out of people coming to the shows and the bartenders and the servers and all that stuff. And it really just kind of all played out to where towards the end of my time, I was playing more acoustic solo shows. So the whole time I was in Big Time, I was also playing some solo shows, just not as frequently, because the band would usually play on Friday and Saturdays. Those were like the big booking days, and then that left like Wednesdays and Thursdays and Sundays that I could play as a solo artist. So I would do that. And I did this for 2 years, and it kind of it had gotten to a point where I just kept booking more solo acoustic shows. And yeah, Big Time was my priority, but so was my own career as an artist. And it had just gotten to a point where it only made sense for me to walk away, and everybody in the band was supportive and they understood. So we set a date that would make sense for me to for that to be my last show with them, and it was in Pittsburgh, so it was close to home, and it was a really good experience with them. I'm so happy that I got to play with such talented musicians, such awesome people in general. I learned a lot from that band and from everybody in it, and it was really fun. So, when I did that, I just everyone, we were all sad, but we understood kind of what needed to happen, and I updated my EPK and started emailing different venues to see if they would book me, because at that point, all of my Fridays and Saturdays were open, and if I wanted to be a full-time musician, I needed to book some shows. Up next on Archer Amplified, I have my first guest on here, John Wilson from BigTime. He's going to talk to you about beach music and how COVID has affected what they are doing as a band, and yeah, it's going to be a fun hangout session. So make sure you go check out my website, look up archermusicxx.com, listen to my song Colors, that's also on my website, and make sure you go give my Facebook and Instagram a like and a follow. Just search Archer Music XX. Thanks for listening.